Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I would like to start with an acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the land. We are a team living and working on the land of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge their ownership of the land and pay respects to their elders past, present and future. We also acknowledge the rich tradition of oral storytelling by First Peoples, which has allowed for the transfer of knowledge from one generation to the next millennia. I'd also like to recognise that we are presenting this webinar in the midst of a context of a global pandemic and current global unrest due to civil rights problems. Also, a little bit of housekeeping. We invite you to add any questions via the Q&A function throughout the presentation, as we'll be getting to those in the last 15 minutes. Please use the chat as a space to introduce yourself, share your thoughts, comments, and have discussions with the community of participants here. We will be keeping an eye for any questions and comments in both windows, but we suggest that you put any questions to the panelists within the Q&A. I would also like to let you know that this session will be recorded. So if you are unable to be a part of all of it, I will be sending you the recording later today. A little bit about Portable. Welcome if this is your first ever session with us. We've been around for about 15 years now, and we are a purpose-driven digital design agency. Our mission is to address social need and policy gaps within the community by using human-centered design and technology. Yeah, just a little bit, I guess, about us and, you know, the office when we were still there, not working remotely like at the moment. And a little bit about the people that are joining us today. So we have Jade Sarita Arnott, the founder and creative director of Arnsdorf. Sarah Kaur, Portable's head of strategy. Winnie Taluk, HR training and impact lead at Hub Australia. And Peter Rudder, the general manager of strategy, brand and community development at Beyond Bank Australia. And behind the camera, we have the fabulous mind of Shay. She'll be keeping out, like watching the chat and also reading out the Q&A at the end of the day. Yeah, so let's, I guess, get into it now. Yeah, so employees are attracted to working at B corporations. They see business that is striving for better and they want to join in. But Peter, when new team members join and they begin going about their regular days, what do you do when the expectations do not align with the job or the business?
Thanks, Hayley, and thanks for the invite along. And thanks also for using a picture of me that's a few years old now. So people have noticed the difference between what's on the screen and what was the photo. So, yeah, look, we do actually have a lot of really good people join us because we're a B Corp, because they've heard about us through a B Corp, which is terrific. I guess what I would say, though, is that whilst they may know a little bit about sustainability and B Corp, they don't necessarily know a lot about things like what it is to be a customer-owned organisation, you know, how big the cooperative and mutual movement is in Australia, how aligned it is to what B Corps are all about. So cooperative principles, and also perhaps just the difference between a customer-owned or a mutual business to a shareholder business, and then what that actually means. I guess what I'd say in summary out of all of that is that people who join us with expectations around what it is to be working for a B Corp, I think are often pleasantly surprised when they come to Beyond Bank, because it's seen as such a genuine place that we're coming from and so aligned around purpose and values with the B Corp movement. So there's a lot to, I guess, a lot to like that matches with people's expectations, but probably goes even further than maybe what they might have expected.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Sarah, I know that we spoke a little bit about this earlier today. Do you have any?
Yeah, for sure. So I think Portable's been a B Corp, I think, for about 4 going on 5 years now. And it's really run through the ethos and the entire DNA of the company. And many potential people who, you know, come up in the pipeline as candidates start to buy into that vision really strongly and heavily, and which is really, really interesting. And I think what happens is that in everyone's day-to-day roles, they may feel further or closer to being able to deliver that impact, that positive kind of contribution to people's lives. And what we've been trying to do more and more at Portable is to make it very clear how, if impact is at the apex of a pyramid of work that we all do, the foundation really sits with the kind of discipline level specific contributions that everyone's making. And we're trying more and more to make it really clear how everyone's contributions are adding to that impact, no matter what role they have or how far away it feels from the work that's being delivered to our clients. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. You know, Whitney, you work for Hub Australia, which is a co-working space. How, I guess, do you have members buying into your values and beliefs when they've already been built, and particularly when they may not be within the organisation as such?
Yeah, hello everyone, I'm Whitney, and I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm working on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So for us, yeah, so we're a co-working provider with sites, 7 sites across Australia. We've got around 60 staff and just over 3,000 members. And so we have a pretty big community that we really do work to have our staff and our members being aware of our B Corp status and also the other social and environmental initiatives that we run. And I think in terms of staff, I would say it definitely, in terms of buy-in from staff, I would say it definitely starts with the recruitment process. Similar to what Peter said, we have a lot of people coming and wanting to work for Hub because we are a B Corp and they recognise that stamp of approval and what that communicates in terms of our commitment. And yeah, we find that people are really drawn to that. And so that's sort of a little bit of the work already done for us. And then when they start at Hub, we have a really awesome onboarding process, and part of the training involves a whole session around our impact, and that includes our B Corp journey. We were one of the founding B Corps here in Australia in 2013. And yeah, so the big focus on that. And then our values, our company values are also tied to how we operate as a B Corp and how we choose to do business. And that is kept present by things like on Slack, which is our what we use to communicate internally. We've got a channel called Hub Love, and people can call out colleagues that have gone above and beyond, and actually tag at one of our Hub values to the thing that it is they're calling people out for. So there's a bunch of different stuff like that we do that I guess the intention behind it is to keep our company values present and also make sure that we're communicating clearly to our staff about like what it is to be a B Corp and why we do the things that we do. Yeah.
Awesome. Jade, have you found the same? Like, have you found that more people are attracted to Arnsdorf, particularly with that B Corp status?
I think like for our brand, the values are really front and center of all that we do. And so a lot of people are attracted to the brand because of our ethical manufacture, our transparency and our sustainability. And I guess the B Corp part of it just really ties in so nicely with what we had already built as the foundation. So yeah, a lot of people have reached out because they've seen that we're also a B Corp, but also it's also been a nice journey for some of our customers that may not have been familiar with the B Corp certification, have sort of learned through us what that means, which has been a nice journey as well. In terms of staff, I think, yeah, we definitely have had most of our staff members approach us because of their alignment with those core values. And the B Corp, a lot of people feel really proud to work at a company that has a B Corp certification. So it's been a really nice addition to the brand.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Sarah, I know that Portable is kind of going on their recertification journey later this year. Yeah, I guess how do you think companies can keep the momentum going? I know that there's always like that beautiful hype kind of where you're going into the first certification or you're going to recertification where you want to improve everything. But how do you keep that going, and particularly, I guess, get more people involved to make sure that it actually sticks?
Yes. So it's really funny because when we think about the event itself of recertification, I've seen it play out in two ways, because I think BCorp, the organization, does an actual kind of audit for 10% of people. And we were lucky enough to be chosen about 2 years ago. And they necessarily, as part of that audit, needed to speak to people who weren't on the executive team, right? Who weren't just the leaders who would normally fill out that B impact score. So they really tried to reach out to people at all levels working in the organization. And that really opened up our eyes to like, if we do this properly and we get a sense of buy-in from everyone, that increased visibility and transparency and the kind of forum it creates on the discussion is one of the most helpful things to actually drive that forward from a place of everyone owning it together. So everyone owning it together, we still need to have internally like a champion who keeps it front of mind. And what we're trying to do more and more is see the re-accreditation process as an opportunity to look at what we're doing already internally and operationally as a company and connect them to much bigger, kind of more global sets of measures, adjust ourselves against them, and also look really clearly to set available and achievable goals that the staff are really interested in. So for example, our staff are really interested in principles around accessibility. So whether that means when we're ready to go back into our office, that we have everything set up so that anyone finds that place accessible, that there's clearly, marked spaces for, whether it's like toilets, kitchen spaces, and now there's an increased kind of level of accessibility where partially we've got a set of people who will continue to work from home for a while. So how do we make sure that accessible also means that whether you're in a face-to-face kind of work environment or a remote environment, that, we've got the technology and the spaces able to make that a really equal experience for everyone. So we've got a whole team of staff who are just, off their own back, kind of self-advocating and taking that forward. And the more opportunities we find to have that wellspring within the organization, just the better I think we're going to get at being able to hopefully improve on our BCorp score, because we rated ourselves more highly than the BCorp organization did. So it's really good to kind of go, external lens, how are we going to actually improve?
I think that would always be the way, to some extent, though, that you would always rate yourself higher. Not California.
I thought I'd just jump in there as well, because we are currently going through the process of recertification, and this is the first time that I've gotten to do it for Hub Australia in the role that I'm in now. And it's been really interesting going through the certification and realizing so many of the things that we do that are really part of the culture at Hub are actually things that really do contribute to our BCorp overall score. And I guess I'm now looking at, okay, how can I make sure that we're communicating that to our staff, that this thing that we do, that's awesome, that you love about Hub, that actually, we don't do that just because of our BCorp certification, but it contributes to it. And I think stuff like that can have people be more excited about the BCorp certification, and also making sure that there's that people are educated, around what it means to be certified, the impact areas and things like that. And so what we've done for the recertification process this time is, because there's only one of me, we put together a project team who are working on the recertification, which has been really, really fun, because it meant that we got different people across the business that would not usually get to be part of something like this. They get to be involved. And so now that we've we've completed most of the B impact assessment, they're now putting together ideas of how we can improve for next time around. And then that kind of gives us our strategy for the next 3 years between now and the next recertification of what we can be doing to improve. And so I'm really, really excited about that, because I love working on this stuff, but having other people involved and having a little team to work with on that has been really, really cool. So that's definitely something that if you're a smaller business, I'd recommend doing that, having a project team, because it means that they get, skills in different areas that they wouldn't usually get as well.
I love it. So I guess our next topic area is navigating ethical social impact and the for purpose space. I guess these kind of terms can be quite confusing. They can mean the same thing to some people. They can mean entirely different things to other people, which can make it a little bit ambiguous. But at the moment, we have Generation Z and the re-emergence of the left, and lots of social movements happening in the world right now. This has put, I guess, a lot of demand and a lot of questions around what it takes to be a good person, let alone a good business. Jade, how do you and your business navigated this? You're just on mute, right, Jade? Wait, you're good. Okay, sorry.
I think, both as communities and as businesses, it's a challenging time, but also a time of great change. So I think being on the side, being a business that already has, those foundations that adhere to BCorp businesses is really useful to convey a sense of authenticity instead of just being, a sort of a traditional brand and then trying to take on these social and ethical conversations. It's much easier to come from a place of really having backed it up with your own business practices. So I think, being authentic about what you're actually doing, and also having really a strong voice about the values of your company really helps in these situations. And each time a topic comes up, it's important to address it and to have a conversation both internally and also externally with your clients or customers, and sort of just reiterate the values of the brand. And I think also it's a work in progress. We're continually trying to improve, in the space. We're trying to be more ethical, be more sustainable, be more transparent, and you can always improve. So I think it's starting on that journey and being open to change and development as you go.
I think it's completely correct. I think it's the change that comes with it as well.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes me to my next question on the next topic of shaping and maintaining a voice in an evolving consumer landscape. And it's really, acknowledging that when you're striving for better, it means that you're also acknowledging that you're not perfect yet and you're not where you want to be just yet. And sometimes, I guess, customers can have expectations of what a business is from the outside, and maybe their expectations are where you want to be and you're not quite there yet. And I guess, Peter, what happens when what a company currently is doesn't meet the customer's expectations? How do you address it? How do you work through it?
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. Look, it's a good question. And Beyond Bank, for those who aren't aware, said it before, customer-owned bank, in excess of 250,000 customers across Australia. So we really do operate right around the country nowadays. Fair to say that it's impossible to meet everybody's expectations. So, some people feel like you don't go far enough. Some people feel like you go too far. I guess in the end, you've got to do what you believe is right for all stakeholders. And that's really what our business has gone down the pathway of doing. And we're, please state up front, we are far from perfect. It's been a journey that we've been on. When we first started and went through the BCorp process, I think we actually probably were a little bit pleasantly surprised that we scored a 98 on the initial sort of scorecard, but then started to have a look at how can we do better, and that has been a process for us about working through learning from others. So we've been lucky enough to be able to visit a number of organisations overseas, like Patagonia, Ben and Jerry's, and Danone, to learn from other industries as well as to, what do they do, how does that work for them, and not just take a banking lens to all of these things. As part of that journey, we've been able to improve the score from 98 up to our latest assessment of 140, but that still pales in insignificance to some of the overseas organisations that we visited, and the scores, the likes of Beneficial State Bank in the US, are an example to us. So I think you can always do better, but for us, it's actually about continuing to strive for what's next. What can we do next? What impact can we have? But then we also have to manage that with the expectations around sustainability. We have a CFO who's constantly telling us we can't love ourselves out of business. And so there really is that balance within the organisation about driving for greater impact, having a better impact on all stakeholders, but doing it in a way that's not compromising the profitability, the strength of the organisation. But, I'd say it's been a journey for us, and we can't meet everybody's expectations, but we're doing our best.
Yeah, that is great. Whitney, do you have any points on, how you navigate when a customer's expectation of a business, particularly from that kind of more purpose, ethical side, may not meet sometimes what the reality is, even though the business is trying to get to that, maybe?
Yeah, it's interesting. I find as soon as you say, as a business or even as a person, as soon as you say you care about one particular issue or challenge, it's the expectation is that you care about all the things and you're doing all the things, and it can be really challenging because as a business like Hub that is really focused on community, we're really trying to make sure our environmental impact is as minimal as possible, and all of those sort of things. We are definitely held to a higher standard than your average business that does not do good for the world. And I find that sometimes frustrating because it's like, okay, well, we're doing all this stuff. Like, look at those guys over there. But I guess I would probably agree with what Peter was saying around, acknowledging that there's always going to be things that we're going to be working on. And I think the best way to do that is to just communicate with customers, and if there are expectations that they have, I think just acknowledging that, and that it's like that is really valid, and that being clear about whether that is something that we're going to work on or it's not. And I think what makes that the easiest is for the business to be really clear themselves about what it is they're about, and what it is, what are those things that you really care about and that you want to be vocal on and be an expert in, because we can't do all the things, but there's with Hub we've really tried to look at how can we have the biggest impact as a provider of amazing co-working spaces, like what actually can we do, and being clear about that so that we don't get distracted by all the million different things that we could be doing to have an impact.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think sometimes, particularly when it is, there is the businesses and also people that say they care and then kind of held to a higher standard, which is amazing. Sometimes you're like, but what about them?
Yeah, it's definitely good. I'm definitely not saying that it's bad to be held to that standard, because I think that's great, and I think it makes sense. But I would really love it if all businesses were held to that standard. But that's why we're BCorps, and that's why we're talking about this stuff.
Yeah, certainly. I completely agree. It kind of also leads us quite nicely onto the next topic, of opportunities and challenges that lay on the road ahead of us. I guess, Sarah, what do you want to see in BCorp land? Like, what would you like to see our accreditation, like what would you like to see happen? Or what would you like to see happen over the next 10 years?
actually think really to support what you've just said, Whitney, about seeing more businesses want to embrace kind of becoming a business that's branded or accredited as being for purpose is a huge opportunity. And I think for existing B Corps like we represent, that's actually in the next 10 years something that I think we can be quite deliberate about, being advocates for that space so that more people understand B Corp, they see B impact, and they actually start to understand how all of the things that we're investing in make great business sense, not just, you know, the fluffy kind of like social responsibility team to the side, that it actually contributes to a really engaged workforce, for example, or can, and that's one of the primary, especially in the services business, something that really delivers great kind of business outcomes. I also think specifically an impact area for the technology kind of services industry and design services industry that Portable operates in. I'd love to see us be able to consider the ethics and the impact of technology, as I see that playing a larger and larger role, both to be, I guess, be quite purposeful about where we see it going and the vision for what ethical technology means, as well as being quite clear on how projects like a digital transformation can help us achieve sustainability goals, diversification goals, accessibility goals, and being able to communicate that to clients, I think, yeah, is going to be great. At Portable, we've gone pretty far into this like evangelist space a little bit, where sometimes we've got people who meet with us, other businesses, and they're a commercial business, and they say, we love you, we want to work with you. And part of what we do as, you know, like thinking about, okay, what can we work on together? We've gone as far as said, we really want to work with you, but we're just not sure if your vision is really aligned. Would you consider trying to become a B Corp and then we can work together? So we're trying it in all different kinds of ways.
Has that ever worked, Sarah?
Okay, no, not yet. But you know, this is a 10-year goal, right? A decade.
Yeah, Jade, I guess what would you like to see happen? I guess not only for Arnstorff, but also the fashion industry, which, you know, as you've spoken about in multiple articles, that is notoriously wasteful and damaging on the environment.
Yeah, I think in terms of the BCorp certification, it's quite, well, within Australia, it's quite early days. We were the first major fashion brands to get the BCorp certification. So I'd really like to see other brands coming on board. There's obviously been a huge focus on sustainability and ethical manufacture within the fashion industry. There still needs to be a lot of work done, but I think it's really important to have these sort of outside independent certifications just to back up, you know, what a company is saying and what they're actually doing in practice. So I think it would be a lot easier for consumers to sort of decipher which brands are having a positive impact if more brands were able to sort of get onto the BCorp certification. So I'm hoping that most brands within in 10 years will have a BCorp certification, that it will become, you know, an industry standard, that consumers will demand it, and that, you know, they won't want to buy from brands that aren't upholding these types of values. I think, you know, there's a lot of power with the consumer, and, you know, if they shop their values, it's really going to have a huge impact in, you know, the larger scope of the world. So yeah, I see like a lot of brands heading in that direction, but I think just putting it front and center within the framework of their business would be an improvement.
Yeah, have you seen that, I guess, happen a lot more often, that people are, I guess, like the term is kind of like voting with your money, that people are more looking towards businesses that fit their values?
Definitely. I think, yeah, a lot of people come to Arnstorff because their values align with ours. I see, you know, there's Well Made Clothes, which is a platform that only has brands that have ethical practices, sustainable practices. David Jones has just launched their mindfully made component of their website. So it's definitely a growth area, even in the mainstream. The Iconic is another really big online platform that also has a curated section of sustainable offerings. So yeah, I think more and more people are going to demand it, and we'll see it becoming the industry norms. There's definitely been a real awakening to environmental impact and social impact, and consumers are swaying away from fast fashion into more mindfully made purchases. So I think that's really positive, and I see that just growing in the future.
Yeah, I really hope it does grow. Peter, I guess you come from a maybe notoriously not for purpose based industry of banking. Yeah, I guess what do you hope to see?
Yeah, look, I think everybody on today's webinar would probably heard of a thing called the Royal Commission that happened in banking not that long ago, which perhaps highlighted that there were a lot of challenges in the banking space. And having said that, we were really pleased that none of the customer-owned banks in Australia were found to be acting in inappropriate ways, as some of our friends at the larger end of town were behaving. So there's a lot of improvement there around the social licence of banking and their responsibilities to that. But if I sort of concentrate perhaps on where I see things more broadly than maybe just in our sector, I'd say that I do agree that increased interest from consumers generally around who they're buying from and who they're supporting, which I think is a real positive. For our organisation, we're working in areas like financial wellbeing, housing affordability, aged and disability support, areas that have had real challenges, and really looking forward to some opportunities that we see to be able to have a really positive impact in that area. And perhaps the other message I'd go with in terms of an opportunity is, and we've seen this right from the start, that we think one of the biggest opportunities is actually the BCorp network, actually supporting one another. I think if we can do that more and more, then I think that sends a really strong message about us caring about who we're doing business with, as much as we're looking for our customers to care about those things as well. So we really see a lot of opportunity to work more and more together within the BCorp networks, with aligned organisations generally around values and purpose, which is a great area of interest of ours, and it has been for a number of years. Perhaps on the challenge side too, I'd probably say one of the challenges for us in banking is just the speed of change, just the impact of what's going on our business, whether it's technology. For us, we're a highly regulated sort of area of business. We've got all the consumer behaviour issues. We had one of our directors sort of say to us, change has never been as quick as what it is currently in banking today. But at the same time, it will never be this slow again. And I think that's really true. I think that that's just the nature of the world that we're living in today. So that's one of the challenges, I think, for all of us around then, okay, well, I think then for us, it makes a difference to just be really clear about what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and what you're doing. Keep your eye on the ball, I think, is our view of the world there.
Wonderful. Yeah, Whitney, what do you hope to happen within co-working hub, the world?
Big question. I think with co-working, with everyone currently, there's a rather significant challenge we're all living through at the moment called a pandemic. So with us and our sites, the big challenge in the now and the immediate future is around health and safety, and ensuring that our spaces are really yeah, I guess not only adhering to the health and safety protocols stipulated by the health department and safe work, but kind of, you know, going above and beyond that so that our staff feel safe to be coming back into work, and also so that our members feel safe coming back into work, because we need them, you know, in the space, because that otherwise the community is you know, we don't have that physical community. So that is a really big challenge for us at the moment. And I think, yeah, for co-working moving forward, that's going to be a really big one. You know, over the last few years, the focus has been around amenities and providing really awesome additions to just a desk, but having, you know, a gym, a cafe, all of that kind of stuff. And now, yeah, we really feel like we've gotten that down pat. So now the next focus is around health and safety. And then in terms of opportunities and what I would love to see in kind of, I guess, broadly across BCorps is I really love Sarah's suggestion around holding the people that you work with to that high standard and giving them a little nudge towards the BCorp certification. I think that's awesome. And I would really love to see our members, more and more of our members becoming certified. We do get a lot of them asking us about the certification when they join, and I love having those chats. So yeah, I think there's that. And then also really big focus on environmental impact. We're going through the process of becoming carbon neutral certified with the Australian department that, well, yeah, Climate Active. And so we're going through that at the moment. And it's interesting because I've been doing that kind of in parallel with our BCorp recertification, and they're really, really complementary, both those certifications. So I'd love to see more BCorps pursuing the Climate Active assessment as well. Yeah, because I guess that's, you know, along with a pandemic, we have a environmental crisis as well. So yeah, I think that is another really great way to ensure that you are yeah, reducing your emissions and making sure that you're contributing in a positive way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Whitney, and thank you to everyone else, you know, joining in the conversation. We're about to hand it over to Shay for the Q&A section. So if any of the attendees have any questions that you'd like to ask us, please, yeah, just pop it in the Q&A there now.
We've had a couple already, so I can dive right in. Thank you all for all of your insights. It's really great hearing about what it is to be a BCorp beyond just what I know at Portable. I think there's two questions here that were relatively similar, and they relate to, so one was about how small can a business be to explore BCorp certification? And the one that kind of matches that is, at what stage of a new business do you think a startup should start seeking a BCorp certification? And are there specific milestones you'd look at as an indicator? And that's to any of you across the table.
Yeah, I can actually answer this one. My partner is currently creating a line of a business, so he's currently looking at it, and if you are less than 12 months, you can't actually become a BCorp certified, but you can join like a pre-BCorp certification, which, Whitney, did you go through that with Monochrome Coffee?
I can't actually remember. I think, yeah, I can't remember. I don't know if that was a thing when we did it, but yeah, you do have to have been operating for 12 months, but you can start going through the impact assessment prior to, and what we did with, so I have formerly run my own business as well. That was a BCorp, and yes, what we did is we basically prepped everything so that as soon as we got to that 12-month mark, we were able to submit our assessment and get certified ASAP. And yeah, I would definitely recommend, in terms of at what point do you do it, I would be recommending to new businesses to do it as soon as you hit that 12-month mark, because it can be really, really formative in the way you run your business, and in a very good way. And yeah, you can be any size, you can be any, doesn't matter how big or small you are. And I saw someone else asked about the costs. Basically, there's a yearly certification fee that is based on a revenue bracket. So it's all relative to the amount of revenue you're bringing in, and it's very manageable at the beginning. So yeah, ASAP, get into it. That's my answer to that one.
I might actually just pick up on a point that you were making, Whitney, that for me, every time I look at the impact assessment questions, every one makes me consider, like, it's almost like laying out the roadmap, right? So it is that word formative that you use. It's actually very formative to your strategy, the way that you might run your operations. And so even having a look at the questions provides a pretty good idea and a pretty good roadmap, even at the very start of conceiving of what a business operating model might be.
Yeah, I agree with that, Sarah. It's very handy to kind of know what challenges you might kind of, I guess, experience in the future, particularly that normally when you start a business, you have one really good wheelhouse. So it's kind of like learning the other ones at the same time as well. Is there any other questions, Shay?
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, the old issue with Zoom. One question was, what learnings and feedback on the BCorp certification process do you all have for someone doing it the first time?
Have a shot at that one if you like. I know for Beyond Bank, our initial process of going through the accreditation process was around 18 months. So it took us a long time to pull everything together. But I sort of feel like, use the analogy, it's a little bit like buying furniture from IKEA. I reckon the second time that you do it, it was a hell of a lot easier than what it was the first time. And I think in the end, we made life harder for ourselves than what we really needed to. And I think the learning for us out of that is, don't be afraid to reach out to the network. There's a lot of good people out there who know a lot about this sort of stuff and can help you along the way. And we put up our hand at Beyond Bank to be able to assist people in that space too. So often have discussions with organisations going through this process, because it's when you get the instructions and you haven't done it before, it seems daunting, but often just by reaching out, I think that's probably the best learning, I'd say, for organisations who want to go through this.
Yeah, I sort of second what Peter said. It did take us a really long time, the first time, and managing it with, you know, everything else that you're doing within the business and the sort of the back and forth with BCorp, the checklists. And I think, you know, be realistic and allow yourself a bigger time, you know, quite a big time frame to achieve this. It's not something that's just a quick little form that you can fill in and be done in a day. You know, it does require quite a lot of time and attention to complete this, but it's worthwhile to do it.
Yeah, I also think it requires quite a few people. Normally not one person can have all the answers to each question. So yeah, it definitely involves, I guess, a lot of collaboration there, making sure that others are, you know, getting involved and making sure your answers are correct.
I'm sure everyone will see as well in the chat that Lauren Diggle from BLab has been giving some great tips, especially if you're looking to become a B Corp for the first time and how long that takes. So thanks, Lauren. And there's also a link to a course where you can learn more about the BLab certification process. One question that I found interesting that stood out to me, partly because I deal with most of Portable's tender responses, but it's other opportunities, e.g. consulting tenders, that B Corps share amongst each other, which might not be made available in other platforms. I can start that off since I have an interest in it. there's no specific like portal or anything available at the moment, though maybe one day we can work with BLab to do that, where RFQs and tenders are issued for B Corps to specifically respond to. And to date, I haven't seen a tender which is targeted at B Corps, but we do make a point, and we're increasingly making a point of looking at the BLab directory of other B Corps if we are looking for a potential partner that may benefit our proposal. Additionally, if in tenders, it will often increasingly, particularly state and federal government ones, are asking for like a social investment statement and a statement on how your environment and your approach to women's safety and equality, amongst other issues. Obviously, talking about our B Corp and the things we've done to become certified is what we generally put in there. And yeah, the theme of B Corp month being collaboration, it's definitely put it front in mind for me to make sure if an RFQ comes our way and maybe it's not suitable for us, to maybe pass on to another B Corp in the network. Did anyone else want to add to that from the panel?
I think oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's a really interesting point, because you know how JD was saying, one of the things that could happen in a decade is consumers learn to recognize that B Corp kind of stamp, I suppose, and they know that, like, great, the complexity is taken out. I have to do less research by myself. I understand what I'm buying when I buy from a B Corp. I think especially the Victorian state government social procurement framework, I see an opportunity there for B Corps to band together a bit more strongly, to actually kind of look at the two frameworks side by side and actually say, Victorian government, a lot of the things that we're already certified for probably put us in a position to respond very effectively to procurement models where you are emphasizing the social procurement framework. And Lauren, I know you're out there, so let us know if you ever are having chats to state procurement kind of people, because I'd love to advocate for BLab and B Corps in this space.
Another interesting question we had is about kind of working from the bottom up within your organization. The question was, what advice can you share for sustainability managers looking to influence senior leaders to commit to becoming a B Corp? And I think that probably also speaks to if you're anyone in your organization and you want to influence upwards to become a B Corp.
Happy to perhaps take an answer of that from a Beyond Bank perspective. I think for us, we have some good discussion around our executive table, but also around our board in regards to B Corp and sustainability. For us, it's linked directly to the strategy of our organisation, which makes that much more relevant to more people within our business. If that's the strategy of the organisation, then the organisation should be aligning behind the strategy. But that being said, I still think that there's a role for sustainability managers just to understand the various sort of stakeholder views internally within the organisation too, and just build that level of understanding and common ground around what we're trying to achieve as an organisation. There's been some questions asked live here around, I guess the balance of you'd like to be able to do more, and that's always a challenge for all organisations, I'm sure, and it's certainly a challenge for us. But that often comes back down to trying to find the right balance between sort of people, profit, and planet. And for that, I'd just say, well, then you need to start just having the right type of relationships with the internal stakeholders, understanding the various points of view. I always say, look to meet the business where it's at, and then look to make steps forward from wherever your business might be. So there may be some people on this webinar who feel like their organisation's a bit of a laggard in this space and could do a hell of a lot more. We still have to just, I guess, understand where your organisation is and what the next steps forward for your organisation is. Don't look too far ahead. Just keep pushing.
from an executive perspective, Sarah, do you have kind of like any suggestions for people that may be a little bit earlier in their career and are working in a business that may not be B Corp certified yet or could be doing more, and kind of how they navigate that?
So the question's around how you can influence your organization, I suppose, to be interested. Yeah, I think as always with any kind of influence building, there's information and then there's relationships, right? And they go hand in hand. So there's a lot of information probably that exists on the BLab or in the BLab network in terms of the relationships that Peter's often referring to. People that have been through the process and can point you to really relevant case studies for your sector or your size of organization, and how concrete examples of that has actually helped. And then you can start to bring that information, I guess, to your companies, to the executives. I think I'd start there, building your lateral relationships, your internal relationships, and backing yourself up with some real evidence-based information.
There's one last question in the Q&A platform. So if anyone else has any final questions, I prompt you to put them in now. That question is, what kind of methods or communications tools do you use to make sure all staff members are on board with the B Corp accreditation process?
Happy to go again. Yeah, look, there's a variety of different things we use to keep this alive. I guess part of that for us is around about planning for the next period, and then consulting with internal stakeholders about involvement directly in achieving what we're looking to achieve, because that often has sort of tentacles right across the business. But there's also ongoing communications. There's our induction program. There's a whole lot of things that I guess just keep B Corp alive within our business. We're proud to be a B Corp and talk about it often. It's on some of our major scorecards within our organisation. So that's, you know, at a big level, it's involved in the strategy, and so therefore, again, it's more relevant right across the business. At a small level, you know, even on a day-to-day basis, we have B Corp coffee mugs that are branded for Beyond Bank. So we just keep that alive in all sorts of ways. You know, within the business.
Yeah, I think from a smaller business point of view, just having, you know, moments where we have meetings, where we have time to really focus on what we want to achieve as a company, where people can all be focused on the same goals, and, you know, they incorporate the values of the brand, where we could be doing better in certain areas, and that, yeah, having that buy-in from people, creating that vision of the future. Obviously, you know, as the company director, you provide that framework, but having that input and having that collaboration within your team really helps to sort of align people on the journey together.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Jade. I think it's like having that buy-in from staff. I think sometimes like there is, I guess, kind of that idea of too many cooks in the kitchen, but I think also having that buy-in and that motivation can really keep things going as well. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, I guess that is like the end of today. Thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, you can find Whitney, Sarah, Jade and Peter all on LinkedIn. And if you want to find out more about Portable, you can just head to our website, which is portable.com.au. I guess later today, I will be sending you all the recording of this. Yeah, and thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out over email. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.